This is the 2024 Four Roses Barrel Strength Limited Edition Small Batch Bourbon. This is the 17th edition of the release, and I still think it's one of the more underrated fall releases we see each and every year. The quality of the blend to me never disappoints. We'll test it against the 135th from last year and see just how the 2024 stacks up. It is allocated whiskey season here. Stay tuned. It's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C. from the Mash and Drum, and welcome back to the show. Like, subscribe, and help me keep climbing to that 100,000 subscriber milestone for 2024. Now, as you may or may not know, Four Roses uses 2 different mash bills and 5 different yeast strains to create 10 different bourbon recipes. However, this year they announced 2 new mash bills that will be hitting the market soon. So at some point, there will be 20 recipes to chase down instead of just 10, but we'll save that for another video. But before we dive into this bottle, let's hear from today's sponsor. They are back. It's the game changer. It is Zbiotics. All right, they are back. Today's sponsor is Zbiotics, the world's first genetically engineered probiotic that I've been using and talking about for about the last 2 years. What can I say? It's really you guys that have me continuing to talk about Zbiotics. So many stories I hear when I go to bourbon meetups and tastings, bourbon events. Honestly, the best stories I always hear is how skeptical people are before they try this, and then once they do, boom, they realize how freaking good this stuff works. It really has become the first drink for a better tomorrow. So for those of you that do not know how this works, how does it work so well? Zbiotics was developed by some very smart scientists who knew the real problem is not dehydration. It's actually a byproduct of alcohol that is most responsible for rough mornings after drinking. Zbiotics produces an enzyme like the one your liver uses to break down this byproduct. Now, I know I mainly talk about bourbon and whiskey, but a lot of people have asked me, what about other spirits? So if you're a wine drinker, tequila, rum, strictly cocktails, whatever it may be, Zbiotics can still help you out in those situations where you need to be at your best the very next day. On top of that, Zbiotics has no random plant extracts, no off-the-shelf ingredients, no sugar added. The stuff just works. All you have to do is drink one of these about an hour before you start drinking, and that's it. Still drink water, stay hydrated, and as always, get a good night's sleep if you can. But Zbiotics will make it a lot easier for you to get out of bed, get off the couch, get back to the gym the next day, especially if you know you're gonna have a few drinks the night before. Want to see if Zbiotics will work for you? Here's how. Go to zbiotics.com/mashanddrum or scan the QR code on the screen right now to get 15% off your first order when you use Mash and Drum at checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription using my code so you can stay prepared no matter the time or occasion. And don't worry, Zbiotics is backed by a 100% money-back guarantee. So if it happens not to work for you, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So remember, head to zbiotics.com/mashanddrum and use the code mashanddrum at checkout to get your 15% off. Don't wait, order now. Thank you to Zbiotics for sponsoring the episode, and thanks to you for making the sponsors happen. All right, so let's get a pour of this. All right, so as far as what's in the bottle, this year's blend contains a blend of 12, 15, 16, and 20-year-old bourbons. So a blend of 4 bourbons comprised of 3 different Four Roses recipes. So as you guys know, Four Roses has 2 different mash bills. They have 60% corn, 35% rye, and 5% malted barley. They also have 75% corn, 20% rye, and 5% malted barley. So what we have is 31% of the blend is an OBSV recipe that's 12 years old using that 35% rye mash bill. 23% of the blend is an OESK recipe, one of my personal favorites. That's 15 years old using that 20% rye mash bill. 39% of the blend is an OESF recipe at 16 years old, also using that 20% rye mash bill, and 7% of the blend to round it out is an OBSV recipe that's 20 years old with a 35% rye mash bill using that 20-year bourbon in the blend. So the proof is 108.2 with approximately 16,680 bottles of this year's release available for a retail price of $220. All right, here we go. Let's dive in. This will only be my second pour of this. So let's see if it's opened up at all. Here we go. First thing that jumps out of the glass, it's almost like this black cherry infused cigar. So there's like this really beautiful tobacco note. It's extremely spice driven still on the nose, which I really like. Definitely a strong leather presence here. So that 20-year bourbon I think is really coming through. But just like a lot of Four Roses LEs, the balance of age, dark fruit, and some of your typical vanilla caramels just really blended together really well. And I think that's why I love these so much. It's the balance that these has. They're never just sweet, they're never just spicy. It's always a nice balance. Now I'm getting like that fresh cracked box of raisins here on the nose. Like getting the sun-made raisins out, just cracking that little red box. Yeah, it's taking me back there a little bit. I'm also getting some apricot here. Man, that tobacco is strong. It's a lot of tobacco here. I don't mind it though, because it balances out with that fruit. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of spice here. I'm getting cardamom, I'm getting allspice, a little bit of cinnamon. It's basically a spice cabinet here on the nose. And I think underlying all of it is a little bit of a bitter, kind of a bitter chocolate note, I think a little bit. But overall, it's a little bit more spice, tobacco, leather driven than it is sweet, at least on the nose. Let's see what we got on the palate. Here we go. Wow, so from the first time I tasted this got way more fruit forward than I remember. When I first tasted this, but it's still really spicy. This is a very spice driven Four Roses. Almost like a cinnamon red hot candy is kind of intertwined in there, because you know, you have like that sweet cinnamon which kind of intertwines with the brown sugar, but this is more of like a cinnamon red hot type thing going on, especially on the back of the palate. I'm getting the raisin and the apricot and some of those dark fruit notes, a little bit of a black raspberry on the front of the palate, but then it just kind of glides into just a ton of tobacco, leather, and spice. At least that's for the first sip. Let's go to the second sip. I'm getting a lot of like raspberry on the mid palate, whether it's black raspberry, red raspberry, kind of a mix of those notes. But again, I'm also getting a touch of that Four Roses herbal quality, which I think, because it's a you know, you have two different mash bills, one's 20, one's 35, that rye definitely makes itself to be known, not only with the spice of it, but I feel like there's a point where you get a little bit of a mintiness type of aspect that hits the palate as well. This herbal, savory, minty quality that I think Four Roses has, that I actually think some people tend not to like about Four Roses sometimes, it's still there. It's intertwined into the blend. However, the age notes, the spice notes, and the fruit notes do, I think, overtake it a bit. But with each sip, it starts to come to the forefront a little bit more. Beautiful mouthfeel. It's getting so desserty now. So desserty. But again, it's got that spice on the back end to balance it all out. I don't think it's the most complex LE that I've had from Four Roses, but this one is gonna make a lot of people very happy just with the deep, rich flavors here. Let me take one more sip and then we'll compare it to last year's. So my mom makes, I know it always goes back to the food, just hear me out here. My mom makes biscotti cookies, which is, you know, it's kind of an Italian cookie. Usually when you get it, they come in kind of like the long slices. You know, they're kind of long. They have a little bit of a top oval shape to it. They're very almond heavy, but my mom makes it with cranberry and cinnamon and nutmeg, and I feel like I'm tasting that in this whiskey. That almond note is starting to come through. However, it's like my mom took like that biscotti but added just a ton of black pepper and spice and raisin instead of like the cranberry, even though there might be some cranberry in there. So maybe it's like more of a cranberry raspberry type biscotti, a little powdered sugar on top. And then you're just like eating that while smoking a cigar. That's what the Four Roses 2024 LE kind of tastes like to me. So all right, let's test it against last year's 135th anniversary. So the 135th comes in at exactly 108 proof. It's also non-chill filtered, just like all of them are, just like the 2024 is. Don't know if I mentioned that. I'll put the blend details here on the screen because I can't remember them off the top of my head, and you guys can kind of compare the blends. But let's compare the whiskeys. Here we go. So the 2024 compared to the 135th anniversary is actually opened up really nicely. It's actually darker, I think, than the 135th, whereas the 135th is coming off sweeter. Now, obviously, the 135th I put a pretty big dent on, but I've been contemplating getting a backup of this bottle, but we'll see. So the 135th for me has a really nice powdered sugar note, and I think that really rich fruit component is there as well, but I don't think it's as spice driven as 2024, at least right now. Let's try it on the palate. 135th, at least with all this air in the bottle, is definitely a lot sweeter. This is more of a creme brulee, velvety, buttery. I think that almond note is still there, but man, it is very rich. And I actually think the texture of the 2023 edition, the 135th anniversary, is actually a little bit better than the 2024. I think the 2024 actually drinks a little bit thinner versus the 135th anniversary. However, it's sweeter, not as dark as the 2024, but which one do I like better here? I'm kind of getting that raisin note that I'm getting the 2024 in the 135th as well. But it's just brighter. Everything is sweeter, which I think why people really liked the 135th last year. It just had a really nice balance of spice and sweet as well, but it's a different type of sweet, the one I'm seeing here in this year's edition. Let's go back to 2024. Yeah, this has really just turned into that biscotti cookie with some tobacco, and man, that's good. It's a spicier experience than some other LEs that we've seen. Definitely spicier to me than the 135th was. But I like that. I like that it's got such a really, really great balance. It's fantastic. These Four Roses LEs to me are just some of the better releases that we see each and every year. I know the price is high on it, but we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Let's go to the final breakdown. All right, final breakdown for the Four Roses 2024 limited edition small batch barrel strength bourbon. Yeah, it's a lot. All right, price for this one, 220 bucks. Resale market value. Normally you see these at around 400 to 450 the most, but they'll start to come down overall with availability here being, of course, limited. Value for this one. These are always tricky because at $220, this is an expensive bottle. Of course it is, and I know people will probably just rather go hunt some barrel strength bourbons down for $100, $110. But again, those usually range anywhere from 8 to 11 years old. You have some 20-year bourbon here, which I know is... it's not a lot, it's only 7% of the blend. The price on this one has gone up now to 220. This used to be sub 200. This used to be like $160, $170. So just like everything else, the price on the Four Roses LEs has also gone up. So instead of saying above average, I'm just gonna say the value is even, because you also have to take into account the beauty of the blend that's in the bottle and the quality of the bourbon that you're getting. Most I pay here. Now, I paid secondary to get this, and I usually pay secondary every year because I can never get down to Four Roses when they release these each and every year. I did it the first couple years that I had the channel. I was going down there, but you know, sitting there overnight, I just couldn't do it. So I paid secondary. So I paid about $400 for this bottle, and you know, if I had a choice to pay any other price, given what I'm getting in the bottle, based on what's in the bottle, I'd probably be more comfortable spending $250 to $300 rather than spending the $400 that I did. But again, I always get this right when it comes out, when the prices are kind of high. So if you could wait it out, sometimes they go a little bit lower. But for me, this bottle, you know, I'm kind of a bad person to ask because I'm willing to pay the extra money to get this because they never disappoint for me. Alternatives for this one are easy, and it's the Four Roses Private Selects. If you can get a barrel pick, whether it be at the distillery, at a liquor store, from a bourbon club that you know, some of those can be absolutely fantastic. And then you can get a little bit, you know, fancy with it. Maybe get a few of them, maybe get 4 or 5 of them, blend them together, kind of make your own poor man's LE. I think that's actually a really cool idea. I've tried to do it myself. And actually, you know, a few of them that I've blended have been pretty terrible, but some have been pretty awesome. It just depends on what you mess with. So grab an OESK or your favorite recipe and a couple of other recipes, blend them together, and see if you can make something close to it. And lastly, is it a skip, a try before you buy, or buy and back it up? For me, this is gonna be a buy. I mean, you guys know I'm gonna pretty much, unless it's really off profile, I'll probably always say buy, because I think the quality of the whiskey that you get here, I think Brent Elliott is a mastermind. I'm not sure what he does with these different ages. I just think the quality of blends that we're getting from Four Roses with the LEs, Four Roses does not. I mean, think about it. Everybody complains how many different limited editions come out, whether it's from Jim Beam, Old Forester, Buffalo Trace, and the prices are usually astronomical, and the whiskey does not usually live up to the price. Four Roses, in my mind, is the one LE that they do each year, the one release, I think is worth picking up each and every year, because even at $220, you're gonna get a fantastically blended bourbon. Unless you're not a fan of Four Roses, I think they always hit, I think they never disappoint. And when it comes to looking for a bourbon with a perfect balance of flavors, you're not gonna find much better than Four Roses. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review for the new Four Roses 2024 limited edition small batch barrel strength bourbon. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the subscribe button below. Please hit the like button. And if you haven't yet, find me on Instagram. Let me know down in the comments if you've gotten your hands on this one. If this is one of those bourbons like me that you try to buy each and every year. Are you not a big fan of Four Roses? It's $220, a little bit too steep, even before the resale market value. Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And as I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. Cheers, and I'll see you next time right here on the Master and Drum. This is good.